Was this a case of Sophie's choice regarding Meghan and Harry? As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning. Neil Sean here. Nice to see you. Nice to have your company. Nice to see you. Yes, good wave. Somebody said the other day, Neil, you brought back the wave. No, it's just the fact that I've been able to master this camera stick a little bit better than the other ones. It's not easy, doing two things, is it? I know I can see you now. You're balancing a Horlicks, you're a jammy Dodger. You're trying to balance that iPad or your phone or whatever you're watching me on your knee. It's tricky, I know. And then you're worried about that night nurse frappy falling down the front of your nightie. I can see the problems that we have just putting this show together, Pulling your leg, of course. It's always lovely to have your company because obviously without you, we couldn't make the shows. I genuinely mean that. The feedback is lovely also. Love your comments, so do keep them coming. I read as many as humanly possible in the 24 hours we have before we make even more for you. Back as ever, though, to your breaking royal story of the day. There was a big story breaking over about Sophie Wessex recently and Meghan Markle. Apparently, according to the mainstream media, Sophie was relieved at her elevation in her new role alongside Prince Edward as the Duke of Edinburgh, seemingly because she wouldn't need now to curtsy to Meghan or indeed Harry upon their return back here to the United Kingdom. Now, what's interesting here is Sophie, as I say, I met her many years ago when she worked as a publicity assistant manager for a mainstream radio station over here, Capital Radio, the biggest at the time. She was a very shrewd, very clever girl, knew exactly how to market that brand to great success. This is a lady who's very intelligent, knows exactly how things work. What's interesting also here is that people are saying, well, she didn't want to have to curtsy. Now, it was Sophie's choice that she decided, if you recall, during the Platinum Jubilee and other events, to sit alongside Meghan. Not many people were brave enough, as one can imagine. But Sophie knows what it's like to deal with errant, shall we say, micro celebrities after many years of working in that radio station. Now, if you think about this, Meghan would not know who was to curtsy to who, according to her, because she didn't know anything about the British monarchy, did she? She'd never Googled them. She didn't really understand it. Now, what's also interesting, what we told you a couple of days ago, is that she received curtsy lessons, even though she was pictured curtsying somewhat briefly on her little watch cable TV show, Suits. You remember that? But then, of course, it was down to Fergie, the Duchess of York, who taught her the original curtsy as she met our late and beautiful monarch, Queen Elizabeth II. But as for Sophie curtsying towards Meghan, it never ever happened, simply because it is at the discretion of that person. And if, of course, like for instance, we saw recently Sophie alongside His Majesty the King Charles, doing a little friendly shoulder bump as they were at the Commonwealth event, well, of course, you can just see friendship and informality does reign amongst the British monarchy, and the royals themselves know exactly what they wish to do, particularly in public. We saw, of course, on many different occasions, the beautiful Princess of Wales graciously curtsy to our wonderful late monarch, as she did with King Charles at her recent Carols concert. But as for Sophie curtsying towards Meghan, it simply would never happen, seemingly because Meghan would never know, and according to a very good source, Sophie simply wouldn't waste the time, given the fact that Meghan herself says she doesn't understand royal protocol, finds it all a little bit baffling, and more importantly sees it as quite medieval and historical, princes, kings and princesses in castles. She didn't totally get it. Why on earth would someone like Sophie decide to give someone that particular gesture? As ever, it remained Sophie's choice, and one that seemingly Meghan had no idea about. So once again, a great story by the mainstream media, but totally made up. Neil Sean in the very heart of the United Kingdom.